Alright, I need you to just picture this. A quintessential American suburb, somewhere nestled just outside the bustling city. Think manicured lawns, two-story houses with neatly painted white picket fences, and bicycles left casually on driveways. This isn't just a collection of homes, it's a community, a haven. Kids ride bikes down quiet streets, neighbors chat amiably over fences, and the air frequently carries the scent of weekend barbecues. Everyone knows everyone, or at least, they think they do. The local elementary school boasts high ratings, the crime rate is virtually non-existent, and the biggest drama is usually who forgot to take out their trash cans on pickup day. In this picture-perfect setting lived the Miller family, a fictional name for this narrative. David and Sarah Miller were the kind of couple everyone admired. Successful careers, two well-behaved children, a beautiful home, and active involvement in local charities and school events. They represented the very ideal of suburban bliss, their lives seemingly untouched by conflict or hardship. Their daily routine was predictable and reassuring. Morning commutes, school pickups, cheerful greetings with neighbors, and quiet evenings spent in their immaculate home. Their presence contributed to the overall aura of perfection that defined their street. This was a place where people felt safe. Doors were often left unlocked, children played freely until dusk, and the idea of violent crime felt like something from a distant city, a dark news report that simply didn't apply here. The community was tight-knit, almost self-contained, fostering a sense of collective security. There were no obvious shadows, no hints of discord, just the quiet hum of comfortable, prosperous, and seemingly happy lives. But beneath this meticulously maintained facade, a profound darkness was about to stir. The idyllic peace, the trusting relationships, and the very illusion of safety were about to be shattered by an act of unthinkable violence. The stage was set for a chilling revelation, where the perfection of the suburban dream would unravel, exposing the strange, dark, and mysterious secrets that can lurk even in the most seemingly perfect neighborhoods. The quiet hum of suburban life, a symphony of lawnmowers, distant laughter, and the gentle rustle of leaves, was brutally interrupted. The first sign that something was terribly wrong in the Miller household wasn't a scream heard, but an unusual silence, a break in the predictable routine. Perhaps it was a neighbor noticing the newspaper still on the driveway well into the afternoon, or a friend calling to confirm a lunch date, only to be met with an unanswered phone. When concern finally gave way to alarm, and a welfare check was initiated, the horrifying truth came to light. The pristine two-story home, with its inviting porch and cheerful flower beds, held a secret no one could have ever imagined. Inside, the scene was one of unimaginable horror. The Miller family, David, Sarah, and their children, had been brutally murdered. The details were gruesome, suggesting a deeply personal and violent act. This was no random home invasion. This was a complete, profound violation of the family's sanctuary. The initial shock of the first responders, seasoned police officers accustomed to the mundane calls of suburban life, was palpable. They stepped from the sunlit perfection of the street into a nightmare, a stark, sickening contrast between the meticulously maintained exterior and the unspeakable carnage within. Crime scene tape, a jarring yellow line, quickly cordoned off the property, transforming the once welcoming home into a terrifying tableau. A wave of panic rippled through the neighborhood with astonishing speed. Whispers turned to gasps, then to outright fear. What happened? Quickly became the desperate, echoing question. Who could have done this here? In this community where doors were often left unlocked and children played freely, the idea of such brutal violence was alien, a horror reserved for distant cities and television screens. The sudden, overwhelming presence of patrol cars, flashing lights, and grim-faced detectives shattered the illusion of safety they had all so comfortably lived within. Adding to the chilling mystery was the initial lack of obvious clues. There were no signs of forced entry, no indications of a struggle from the outside, no clear evidence of robbery. This wasn't a random break-in. It was intimate, targeted, and deeply unsettling. The killer had either been invited in or had found a way to enter unseen, committing their horrific acts before vanishing just as silently. The perfect facade of the suburban dream had not just cracked, it had been violently ripped away, exposing a dark, terrifying truth hidden beneath its polished surface. The the community was left reeling, profoundly afraid, and haunted by the chilling realization that pure evil had walked among them. In the grim days following the Miller family murders, the initial shock gave way to a chilling, pervasive fear that seeped into every home in the seemingly perfect neighborhood. The police, facing a lack of forced entry or obvious robbery, quickly came to a terrifying conclusion. The perpetrator was likely not a random intruder. The killer was almost certainly someone known to the victims, perhaps even someone from within the tight-knit community itself. This realization immediately turned fear into profound suspicion. Detectives fanned out, conducting exhaustive interviews with every neighbor, friend, and distant acquaintance. Every casual conversation, every minor disagreement, every long-forgotten grudge was now scrutinized under a microscope. This intense scrutiny began to expose the cracks in the neighborhood's perfect veneer. The picture of harmonious suburban life started to unravel, revealing underlying tensions, quiet resentments, and the subtle jealousies that had been meticulously hidden behind friendly waves and shared garden fences. As the investigation deepened, more unsettling truths about the victims and their seemingly ideal lives began to emerge. Perhaps David Miller had been secretly facing crippling financial debt, or Sarah Miller had been engaged in a clandestine affair. Maybe there was a bitter dispute with a business partner, or a long-simmering feud with a neighbor over something seemingly trivial that had festered into deep animosity. These revelations, initially shocking, added layers to the mystery, forcing the community to confront the uncomfortable truth. Appearances could be deceiving, and even the most perfect families harbored their own complexities and secrets. The psychological toll on the residents was immense. The once friendly street transformed into a landscape of distrust. Neighbors, who had once shared coffees and casual chats, now eyed each other with suspicion. Doors that were once left unlocked were now double-bolted. Curtains were drawn tight, and conversations became hushed. Every familiar face became a potential suspect, every quiet gesture a possible clue. The comfort of community evaporated, replaced by a suffocating paranoia that the monster wasn't just in their neighborhood, it was one of them, living right next door. Hiding behind a perfect smile, the suburban Gothic nightmare had fully taken root. The initial baffling lack of clues only deepened the unsolved mystery, prolonging the agony. The perfect suburban dream had violently disintegrated, leaving behind a community haunted by exposed secrets and the chilling prospect of a killer still lurking in their midst. The atmosphere in the seemingly perfect neighborhood remained thick with a suffocating mix of grief and paranoia. Every friendly wave seemed forced, every conversation guarded. But even as hope dwindled, the relentless work of the investigative team continued, inching closer to the terrifying truth. The breakthrough, when it finally came, was both shocking and a profound relief, even amidst its horror. The crucial piece of the puzzle emerged not from a dramatic confession, but from meticulous, painstaking forensic work combined with a persistent re-examination of digital footprints and a critical witness finally finding the courage to speak. A discarded, seemingly insignificant item found hidden deep within a storm drain near the Miller home yielded DNA evidence that had gone unnoticed in the initial chaos. This tiny, almost missed detail, when processed with advanced techniques, provided a definitive link to an unexpected individual. The DNA led investigators to Robert Hayes, a fictional name, a seemingly quiet and unassuming neighbor who lived just 2 streets away. He was a man who waved hello, whose kids played at the same school, and who had even attended the Miller family's annual block party. The news of his arrest sent a tremor of disbelief and profound betrayal through the community. How could he be the monster? He embodied the very normalcy of their suburban haven. The motive, as it slowly unraveled through interrogation and the discovery of hidden evidence, was even more chilling than the identity of the killer. It wasn't a random act, nor was it a simple robbery gone wrong. Robert Hayes harbored a deep-seated, secret resentment towards David Miller, stemming from a minor business dispute years prior that David had long forgotten, but Robert had nursed into a festering, all-consuming grudge. This simmering anger, coupled with a meticulously concealed history of financial desperation and a profound, undiagnosed psychological instability, had warped his perception until the Miller family became the target of his twisted vengeance. He had meticulously planned the attack, leveraging his knowledge of their routines and the neighborhood's trusting nature to gain entry without force. The community's reaction was a mix of visceral horror and a profound sense of betrayal. The realization that evil hadn't come from the outside but had festered right among them was a devastating blow to their collective psyche. The perfect facade of their neighborhood had not just crumbled, it had been utterly demolished, revealing the terrifying truth. The monster was one of their own, hiding in plain sight behind a perfect smile. The immediate terror of an unknown killer was gone, replaced by the enduring, unsettling knowledge of the darkness that can lurk within the most seemingly ordinary lives. With Robert Hayes in custody and the chilling truth of his motive exposed, the immediate terror gripping the suburban neighborhood finally subsided. But the sense of relief was profoundly overshadowed by a deep, irreparable wound. The meticulously maintained lawns and friendly waves could no longer mask the trauma. The illusion of perfect, idyllic safety had been utterly shattered, replaced by an enduring scar on the collective psyche. The quiet streets, once filled with the carefree sounds of children playing, now carried a subtle undertone of unease. Doors that had once been left unlocked were now double-bolted. Neighbors who had effortlessly chatted over fences found themselves exchanging wary glances, forever tainted by the realization that pure evil had lived just a few houses down. The very house where the Miller family had been murdered stood as a grim, silent monument to the horror, casting a long, creepy shadow over the entire community. It was a constant, stark reminder that their perfect neighborhood would never truly be perfect again. For the Miller family's surviving relatives and close friends, the revelation of Robert Hayes as the killer brought a complex mix of vindication and agonizing pain. While justice was served, it could never bring back their loved ones. They were left to grapple not only with profound grief, but also with the disturbing knowledge that someone they knew, someone who had smiled and waved, harbored such monstrous darkness. The why, though partially revealed, remained incomprehensible in its cruelty and its seemingly trivial origins. The Suburban Gothic Murders served as a chilling, strange, dark, and mysterious parable for society. They forced a painful confrontation with the idea that monsters don't always lurk in obvious shadows. Sometimes they blend seamlessly into the fabric of everyday life. This case prompted deeper questions about the hidden pressures, mental health struggles, and secret resentments that can fester beneath seemingly normal exteriors, ultimately exploding into unthinkable violence. Even years later, the unsolved mystery of how Robert Hayes maintained his facade for so long, and how his darkness went undetected, lingered. The case became a poignant reminder that while the pursuit of justice can bring accountability, it often leaves behind profound emotional wounds and unsettling questions about the true nature of human capacity for evil. The once ideal suburban neighborhood became a somber testament to the fragility of peace and the terrifying reality that the darkest secrets can hide right behind the perfect smile.